Hi there, Dave here. In this video I'm going to connect up the front panel connectors to the motherboard. This includes connecting up the power LED light, the hard drive LED light, the reset switch and the power switch, and a case speaker as well. To make this easier for you to see what I'm doing, I'm going to use this motherboard and connect up the front panel connectors from this computer into this motherboard, and I'll be using this motherboard manual that came with this motherboard. Now it's a good idea to use this video as a guide. Obviously if you're doing this for yourself you'll need to use your own motherboard manual that came with your motherboard. Now my motherboard manual shows me that the header for the main front panel connectors is just here on the motherboard. This header is for the power switch, reset switch, power LED and hard drive LED. It's quite unusual for this header to be up here. Normally you can find this header somewhere along the bottom of the motherboard. Anyway, just go with what your motherboard manual tells you. So here in my manual there's a close-up of the front panel headers. Here is showing exactly where to plug in the power LED, hard drive LED, reset switch and the power switch. So I'll just turn this manual on its side so it's the same way up as the motherboard. Now all of these pins are numbered. This is pin number 1, pin number 2, pin 3, pin 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we can see here that the power LED connector needs to be plugged onto pins number 2 and number 4, with the positive side of the connector, the plus side, on pin 2 and the negative side of the connector, the minus side, on pin 4. So here we have the power LED cable that leads from the front of the case to this power LED connector just here. So how do we know which wire is the positive wire and which wire is the negative wire? You can't always go by the colour of the wires because there's no wire colouring standard. Not only that, sometimes all of the wires are the same colour. Well, the power LED connector will have some kind of marking to indicate the positive side of the connector. Often this marking is a plus sign or an arrow to indicate the positive side. Sometimes this marking will be on the other side of the connector. As you can see on this one, the positive side is indicated by this small arrow here. Okay, so a quick recap. The power LED connector needs to be plugged onto pins 2 and 4, with the positive side being plugged onto pin 2 and the negative onto pin 4. So now we're plugging the power LED connector positive to positive and negative to negative. Sometimes the motherboard will have a plus and minus sign written on the motherboard itself so that you can confirm which way round the power LED connector should be plugged in. If you plug in your power LED connector onto the correct pins but by mistake you plug it in the wrong way round, this will cause no harm to your computer or the power LED light. All that will happen is that when you turn your computer on, your power LED light won't light up whilst the connector is the wrong way round. If you have it plugged in the wrong way round, just turn your computer off, turn the power LED connector the right way round, and that will solve that problem. Okay, next we can plug in the hard drive LED. So let's take a look at the manual again on the same part of the same page. Here is showing us to put the hard drive LED connector onto pins 1 and pin 3, with the positive side on pin 1 and the negative side on pin 3. So here we have the hard drive LED connector, and as you can see on the other side there's an arrow to indicate the plus side of this connector. So the plus side is the yellow wire on this particular one. So let's quickly check that again. Hard drive LED should go onto pins 1 and 3 with the positive side on pin 1 and the negative on pin 3. So let's plug in the hard drive LED light now. Again, positive to positive and negative to negative. So if you do plug in your hard drive LED connector onto the correct pins but the wrong way round, no harm will be done to your computer or your hard drive LED light. If you have plugged in your hard drive LED connector the wrong way round, turn your computer off, turn it the right way round, and that will be that problem fixed. So going back to the manual, on the same part of the same page, we can see that the power switch needs to be plugged onto pins 6 and 8. And on the next page in the manual is showing that the power switch, we can see that pin 6 is the switch on power switch, in other words the positive, and power switch for pin 8 is for the ground, in other words the negative. So here we have the power switch connector, and looking at the other side we can see the arrow there which is showing that the yellow wire is the positive. So now we can plug in the power switch, again positive to positive and negative to negative. Now it's good practice to put the power switch connector in the right way round, positive to positive and negative to negative, but if you plug the power switch onto the correct pins but by mistake you put the power switch in the wrong way round, the power switch will still work anyway, just as it would as if it was the right way round. And now for the reset switch. Now not every case has a reset switch, so if you don't see a reset switch connector in your computer case, then it might be that your case doesn't have a reset button. This case does have a reset switch, so let's take a look at the manual. Here it's showing that the reset switch needs to be plugged onto pins 5 and 7. Let's take a look at the next page. So here we can see the reset switch should be plugged onto pins 5 and 7 as we've just seen, and pin 5 is used for the ground, in other words the negative, and pin 7 for the positive. So here we have the reset switch connector, and on the other side you can see the arrow indicating the positive side of the connector, which is the blue wire. So let's plug that one in. Again, positive to positive and negative to negative. So if you plug your reset switch connector onto the correct pins, but by mistake you plug it in the wrong way round, your reset switch will still work the same as it would as if you plugged it in the right way round. The reason I've talked about plugging in these connectors the wrong way round is because some motherboard manuals will tell you which pins to plug the connectors onto, but they're not always that clear on which way round you should plug them in. So at least you know that if you do plug one of these connectors onto the correct pins but the wrong way round, no harm will come to your computer. This is true for these 4 connectors only. Plugging in other connectors incorrectly may cause harm to your motherboard. Okay, now this motherboard doesn't have the pins to install a case speaker, so I'm going to show you how to plug one in on this motherboard instead. So here in this motherboard manual we can see the speaker needs to be plugged in just here on the motherboard, and here in the motherboard manual it's showing that the plus side should go on to pin number 4. So here on the speaker you can see the positive side is the red wire as indicated by the arrow, and we can plug that in just here on the motherboard where it says speaker pins 1 to 4. So we can plug that this way round. So that was how to connect up the main front panel connectors to the motherboard. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.